You know, one of the coolest things about being in the locker room is that you never know who's going to stop by. We like to have guest stars show up. Sometimes famous people are just rolling through the lobby and we'll say, you know what, you should come in and talk to us. And so this is one of those locations, one of those times. This is one of those moments where we're going to have somebody famous hanging out with us in the locker room. So I hope you'll stay around and join us. Let me introduce you to Hillcrest 9 Miles student pastor, Jeremy Weidlich.
Famous?
You are so famous.
That's
dude.
my intro?
You can't walk anywhere in Pensacola without being like acknowledged and recognized. You know
As a high school boy, I'm 5'6". That's what I'm acknowledged and recognized by.
How's the chair feel? You like it?
I didn't know just how comfortable this is. The power may go to my head. This is Pastor Jim's chair, right?
It is Pastor Jim's chair.
Oof, it's big. It feels nice.
The fun
Thanks
part
for
is
having
that you're also a big fan of the podcast. You like to listen and text me occasionally and give me some insights as far as what's going on. So
yeah,
like to put you on the other side of the camera and see what you think about it. So.
I do. I like to live text you like timestamps of things that happen or things that are said that I find funny or humorous. Or
intelligent or theologically challenging.
Absolutely. And then if anytime like somebody gets a shout out that I know, I'm also texting them. I'm like, look at the podcast, 15 minutes, 38 seconds, your name gets mentioned.
Beautiful.
So it's fun.
That's how we grow.
Long-time listener, first-time caller.
Well, appreciate you being here.
Yeah.
You are sitting in this week because you were our preacher on Sunday morning. We wrapped up what we call Up Weekend. We'll talk about that in just a few minutes, specifically Up Weekend and what this weekend meant and what it was about. But first, a little intro of you, because Hillcrest being such a large church, a lot of times not everyone knows all the people and all the players behind the scenes. Mm-hmm. Typically, your normal Sundays and Wednesdays are spent with our students, our high school students specifically. So you're kind of down in the student center or you're doing those small groups. So you don't necessarily get as much interaction with our church as a whole. So quick introduction of yourself. You mentioned it on Sunday, but you've been a Hillcrester for a long time. Tell us about your story here.
It's super fun. So I grew up here in like the Pensacola area, out in Cantonment, on a farm, and my parents left another church out more in Cantonment to come to Hillcrest in 1999. And so I was a wee little lad back then. I was born in 94, so somewhere around 6 years old. And so this is really all that I remember. I do remember a little bit about our former church. But this is it. Like this is my church home. This is where I grew up. I mentioned yesterday morning, this is where I fell in love with God. This is where I fell in love with the ministry. I fell in love with my wife. We got married here. We've had our kids here. They've been dedicated here. And I've done almost every ounce of my ministry here. There was so right out of high school, I did a little bit of an internship here through a handful of different student pastors and student leaders, and it was really poured into well during that time. And then as I was finishing up college, desiring to go to seminary, I was called to go to a church in Atmore, just north of here. It still felt like I was here. Because I still lived in Cantonment, just made the drive weekly. It was a part-time gig out there, and Brianna and I were in the process. We were engaged and then married while we were technically out there serving. And so when we were engaged, I would have to go pick her up from her parents' house, drive out there on Sunday morning, stay through the Sunday evening service, and then take her back home as I was on my way home. And then we had the privilege of getting married during that time, which was here at Hillcrest, and then continued serving there for, we were there right at a year, and then back here full-time since 2016. I started off as the associate under Dustin Scott, now our next-gen pastor, just the best ever, and then moved into the student pastor role, and I had my own associate, Corey Young. Shout out, Corey. Now I'm in this high school pastor role, and we have David as our middle school pastor or middle school director, and he's just doing a phenomenal job with that. And so it's fun. This is just Hillcrest is my family. Yeah, truly, I've just been here forever. It feels like, and love it, and never want to leave. So.
Yeah, that makes it special because I kind of share a similar story when I lead Discover Hillcrest, because I say, this was our church home before it was really my place of employment, if you will, or where I get to do ministry. And so I've known you for a long time. Yeah. Our oldest son coming up through the student ministry and kind of being around your time frame. So I've watched you grow. I've watched you mature. I have a whole list of questions that I can't ask you publicly based on some things that you may have done over the years.
Sure.
That we wouldn't want to embarrass you. But no, I've seen you develop. I've seen you mature. I've seen you grow into ministry. And so Serious question. You're incredibly talented at basketball. So why did you decide to pursue this instead of the NBA?
Well, there were offers.
I'm sure there were.
No, one of my greatest claims to fame is that it sounds so great at first, and then you start talking into the details of it, and you realize it's really not. But I can say my junior year in 2011, my basketball team won the national championship.
That's right.
And then people keep asking questions, and the first question is like, "Did you play?" And I'm like, for 1 minute of that game, the national championship game, I was in for 1 minute.
You still get the ring.
And they were like, "Okay, like what division did y'all play in?" And I say, private school.
That's right.
And they're like, okay, so you were on a national championship team for a private school. And I'm like, I sure was.
The banner still hangs.
No, it was super fun.
Yeah.
I was at a smaller private Christian school, Alethea, and we played all the sports and had a great time with that. And I really do like basketball. It might be my favorite sport to play, but I'm not the most dominant guy out there just because it's dominated by tall guys. But I always tell my friends, all my friends are taller than me. I feel like my best and closest friends are all significantly taller than me, like well over 6 feet tall. And I always say that when I'm on the court, I feel like I'm their height. And then they remind me that I'm not. But I do love basketball. No.
But the serious part of that question
Yeah.
is, why did you choose ministry to go into? Why was that where you felt led to go?
I didn't choose it, which is what you frequently hear from people that are in ministry.
Yeah.
As I was wrapping up high school, not knowing what I was going to do, I really wanted to do the military, I thought. I really like our country. I really like the pride that comes from being an American, and so I thought that maybe if I was in the military, that would be fun for me. I like traveling. I like going around the world, and I really especially like flying. I like the feeling, like most people don't like turbulence, and I'm like, oh, this is the fun part of the flight. And I like that. I love roller coasters, and so I thought, I want to be a pilot. Like, I want to go upside down, turn corkscrews, fly fast jets, travel the world, fight for my country. And that was kind of the goal. And so as I was wrapping up high school, that's what I was leaning more into. But I was also heavily involved in the church and put into different leadership roles in various capacities at Alethea in high school, representing Christ, and here also representing this ministry. But to be honest, a lot of that, there's a lot of hypocrisy that was going on in my own life and in my own heart, because growing up in church, I felt like I knew all the answers. I knew all the right things to say, but my heart wasn't always, my heart definitely was not always following Christ.
Yeah.
My words and maybe my actions represented him decently, but my heart was as broken can be. And so there's a lot of hypocrisy that was happening, and the Lord was working through that. And I was actually on a mission trip in 2011, and things got kind of hairy and chaotic in that, and it was truly a life and death situation in which God was testing me, but also building character, developing peace of trusting in him. And through that experience that we came back, and there was a significant testimony from that trip, and I had a significant role in that testimony of sharing that story. And through that, I was given a couple different random speaking opportunities at school, here at this church, at other churches as well, and was just sharing how what the Lord was doing in our lives through that trip, and what he's also now doing in my life because of that. Mm-hmm. And that was the first time that someone came alongside me and was like, hey, you have a decent gift on stage of speaking, of kind of getting everyone's attention and talking about the Lord. You should consider ministry. And I laughed. Yeah. I was like, this is absolutely ridiculous. I want to fly fast, travel the world. That's what I want to do. And to me at that time, pastors, they just sat behind a desk and read a book all day. And that was just as far opposite as it can be. Yeah. And so I laughed at that, truly. I laughed at her. I was like, oh, thank you. I appreciate that. There's no chance. And then another person came along and said it, and another person. Mm-hmm. And then I was offered this internship here while I was trying to figure out what to do. My parents actually, behind my back in the best way possible, they applied for me for a military college, and I got a really significant scholarship. Wow. And they're like, hey, as a gift to you, this is what you always wanted, go. But at the same time, I felt this pulling, and I didn't know what to do. And so I was offered an internship here, and David Wiggins at the time was the student pastor, one of my heroes of the faith. And he kind of pulled me aside, and he was like, hey, I can't pay you but it's honestly, it's an honor to be even asked for this. So you should really consider it, which humbled me greatly because I was like, I don't know if you know just how broken I am on the inside.
Yeah.
And then he just grabbed me, and he, along with the Lord and a dozen other very influential people in my life, including yourself, helped mold me and shape me into who I am today. And so I started that internship, and I think within 9 months, I was actually at a beach retreat, and Pastor Doug Kimsel was the speaker at it, and he was speaking, and I felt just this call to ministry that was inexplicable. I was like, I don't know what this means, but I feel it, and I had to get out of my seat and go find my college pastor at the time, Jace Thomas, and grabbed him, and I was like, I feel a call to ministry. We went out in the sand, sat there, and just talked to the Lord, and I kind of committed right then and there. I didn't know what it looked like, and I was 9 months into this internship, and that was in 2012, and here I am 14 years later. So yeah, that's why I'm here. And I had all these different student pastors pour into me during my time in student ministry, during my internships, and I just felt this draw towards students. There was like this saying in high school, I'm not sure who to give it credit to. It could have been a poem or a book, but it was, as the twig is bent, so the tree will follow. And there's this idea of when something is young, whichever direction it is bent, that is the way that it's going to grow for the rest of its life. And for me, that stood out to me, and it's still like one of my driving forces today. Of I want to be one of the forces that are bending young teenagers in the way of Christ when it feels like a lot of the world is bending them in the opposite direction. And so my hope and dream, and I've been in it for 10 years now, is honestly to stay in student ministry forever. I know I'll be an old guy in student ministry one day, and that makes some cultural things difficult. But hopefully by then, I have this pattern of consistency in relationships, that whatever my cultural old guy weirdness is going on, like the gospel's bigger than that. And so my goal would be to retire as a student pastor one day, maybe here, hopefully here, or anywhere else. Just keep investing in young people, bending them in the way of the Lord.
That's awesome. You mentioned some really big names that were influential in your life, and I know exactly what you're talking about. Those men pouring into young leaders is so important. Why do you think some people respond the way you do and others maybe not necessarily, or maybe go a different way? Because you've got the same voices saying the same things, and some people feel that pull and need to know. And like you said, you can't explain it. I just know I have to do this thing. And some don't. Why do you think there's that disconnect between some people and versus others?
Like actually going into ministry versus not?
Yeah, or just following that kind of leadership, following those kind of paths. I mean, we'd love it if 50 young men showed up and said, I want to be in ministry and be student pastors one day, but not everyone does. Why do you think there's that individualized calling on some people?
That's a big question.
I told you to ask some hard stuff.
No, I like it. Well, I feel like it's timing, because I've had amazing people pouring into me my whole life. Like my parents, top of the list, just excellent, devoted Christians, faithful believers, faithful church attenders. Like I grew up in the generation with them. I was like, unless you're throwing up, you're going to church. They're like, but I feel awful. They're like, if you're not throwing up, you're going to church. I had all these people pouring into my life for all of these years, but it wasn't until I also experienced God working in my own life that really those voices became amplified. And so I had to be open to hearing from the Lord and experience something that I could not explain. And that's what it took from me. And so maybe for some other people, for me, that wasn't necessarily a rock bottom moment, but it was a moment in which I truly did say, like, my life was actually in question. Like I didn't know how this day was going to end, and if I was going to wake up tomorrow here on this earth or not. Like things were crazy. And so, I mean, that's a life or death experience can do that for you. But I feel like maybe I always try to encourage parents when their students go through all the years of student ministry and then they go off to college or get involved in the workforce and they wander away. I always try to remind them that, like, that word is planted deep. Like those seeds are there. And so, while we don't want any time of wandering, I always hope that they wander back, kind of like the prodigal son. It's like the prodigal son knew all along. He knew all along exactly what existed at his father's house. The love and the acceptance of being called a son was there. and he wandered away from it. And then when he finally hit rock bottom, he turned back. So I don't know if I can fully answer that question. Do you have?
No, I don't. And but what is always interesting to me is, like you said, it's a God's timing thing. And there are questions I don't think we ever get a full answer to. You know, you give 50 students the same exact information and the same exact input and discipleship, and you get 50 different outputs. You don't really know why God does those things. And there's other factors, obviously, too. But you know now with kids, you will raise kids exactly the same way, and kids do different things. They have different personalities, different likes and dislikes, and different decisions. And I think that's part of it, that our Heavenly Father gives us these opportunities. He gives us the input. At some point, it comes down to us making that decision and following what He's calling us to do. And so it's cool seeing you grow and develop, especially watching some of those journeys and some of those challenges along with you, if I can say it that way. You know, I mean, we prayed for you a lot that you would stop wearing tank tops every day when you weren't supposed to. I don't know why you have such an enjoyment of them, but you've grown out of it, and we're grateful for that.
And skinny jeans with tank tops.
Skinny jeans and tank tops.
I try to get rid of all those pictures, but they like occasionally someone will send it to me. I'm like, where did you find this? And
I remember
15 people sent it to them when I was in high school.
David would make a policy that you absolutely cannot wear tank tops for any reason whatsoever. And your first question would be like, well, what if you would come up with a scenario that would validate.
He made me change once. I showed up here and we were hosting spiritual conference for Aletheia. And I wasn't even doing anything. I was just representing the student ministry, but I had a tank top on. He was like, go put an actual shirt on. And I was like, I'm so sorry. One of my best friends, half of us, we just spent so much time at the beach, and we just wore tank tops and swim trunks just everywhere we went. And that's what I wore. And it was such a mistake. But no, with the ministry thing, I want to add one more thing.
Yeah.
So one of the big things that we really try to teach today is telling someone that you're all called to ministry. Very few of y'all are called to vocational church, working full time for a church ministry or even bivocational. But everyone is called to ministry. And I'll never forget when I came to David, just as excited as I possibly could be, and be like, dude, I feel this call to ministry. I prayed with Jace. I'm giving my life to the Lord. He took me out to lunch either that day or the next day and sat me down and looked me straight in the eyes. And he was like, you're not called to ministry. And let me tell you why. And he just went through this list, and he was like, you know, there's going to be times where you're going to have to choose ministry over this. It's long hours. It's boring. Parents are mean. You know, he just went through this just whole list of awful things about ministry.
Yeah.
And then he looked at me and he was like, so do you still feel called to ministry after all of that? After hearing all this? And I was like, yeah, I really do. Those things are not fun things, but everything else is amazing. And he was like, okay, you're actually called to ministry. Yeah. My job was if I could talk you out of it, then it wasn't genuine. And that's been fun, because I've done that to a handful of people myself. And I'm like, this is so fun. I'm just going to try to talk them out of it. And then ultimately with those guys that I've done that to, I already knew the Lord has definitely called them, but let me just show them as black and white, as transparent as we can be about ministry.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times from the outside looking in, it does look like, it's just a great fun time, but there's a lot of significant, difficult things that we walk through. Yesterday, after I got done doing both services at 9 Mile, I had to go lead a funeral service for my wife's grandmother. Yeah. And so we see the excitement from stage, and I'm jumping around taking pictures with all of my students, and then with less than 2 hours later, I'm crying with my family, and we're carrying the burdens of one another as we walk through loss. Yeah. And so from the outside looking in, it always looks great. And so that's always one of my favorite things that David ever did to me, because I was like, oh, wow, this is scary. But yes, even more so now that you told me all these things, it's still even a bigger yes. Yeah. And so that's been fun. And maybe that's one of those things where these other people, why they're not flocking to the church to work. My dream is that they're flocking to the workplaces to serve there. And that's their ministry, and they're living that out well.
That's cool. Pastor Jim did the same thing with me, so I get exactly what you're saying. It's fun.
Was it terrifying?
It was so good though, because I just kept smiling through it. Everything you're saying, I'm like, let's go. Anyway, let's talk a little bit about Up Weekend, because that's what we just wrapped up. That's why you're here with us today. So Up Weekend has evolved, if you will, for the word, to come from D-Now, which was an isolated weekend where students would gather Friday night. They'd spend 24 hours around the clock all the way through Sunday morning, and they're intense and they're worshiping. It's a little different now. So I want you to talk about why it's kind of come to what it is now compared to like a D-Now back in your day, but then also talk about the advantages of the way we're doing it the way we are now.
Yeah. So I love D-Now. You possibly couldn't find a bigger fan of D-Now and what it was, but also what Up Weekend is today than me, because I've experienced significant life change in my own life as a student, but also as an adult through D-Now and Up Weekend. So like you said, D-Now was crazy. And I'll refer to it like was, because referring to the title and because of how we've changed things. But D-Now was crazy, and it was intense, and it was awesome. And what's beautiful about that is that we took something that was working really, really well, and in my opinion, we made it better. And bigger is not always better, but and I'll get into this because we have more students involved than ever before, but I think that sometimes when you see a large group of students praising God, then like that one student that kind of felt like alone, like I felt like I'm the only Christian in this area. Like when you see this big group, you're like, hold on, I'm not alone. And there's a lot of us out here. And that encourages you. And so bigger is not always better, but in this one scenario, when we come together, this bigger indicates unity. And I think that unity will always be better. And so there was a handful of churches here in this area that were participating in their own D-Now, putting them on, bringing in their own speakers, their own bands, and having phenomenal weekends. But we also noticed that there was division between these churches, these like rivalries that were never being developed or encouraged by student pastors, but somehow were being like fought by the students, where it's like, oh, you go to that church?
Yeah.
And I was like, hold on, do y'all realize that like we're actually friends? Like,
same team.
That student pastor and I, like we get coffee like all the time. Like we like each other. Why are we in like competition with one another? Because it's not. If we're going to be in competition for anything, it's going to be to try to win souls to the church. So like if we are misidentifying our enemy as that church across the street, then like the devil's just having a great time with our thoughts, if that's the way that we see the church. And so these a handful of these churches got together. It kind of started with Olive, First Baptist, and Hillcrest, and we said, hey, what if we did this like united as one big capital C church, and got all these students together and showed them that we're not in competition with one another. And then also we understood that if we do this, then we can invite some smaller churches along that maybe only have 3 students or 30 students, or the budget that they can't really bring in a guest speaker or to do all the T-shirts and all the fun stuff that comes with it. And so we said, let's do this, and let's invite everyone that is willing to participate. And so last year was the first year. We called it Up Weekend, and Up stands for Unite Pensacola. And immediately we went outside of the boundaries of Pensacola, but that was just the best name for it. And Up makes sense. It's a good word. But we're pulling from Cantonment, from Gulf Breeze, Pace, Milton, all over the place. And we gathered together. Last year was over 20 churches. We saw, I think it was over 700 students. We nearly 1,000 here at 9 Mile, gathering together, worshiping Christ. And I cried. I'm not going to lie. I mentioned this in one of the services yesterday, but once I had girls, my eyes broke, and they started doing this watery thing that they'd never really done before.
Welcome to fatherhood.
But it was this idea of like, this is what the church looks like, and it was really cool. And getting to hang out with these guys, like we just finished, yesterday, and we're already texting about when is our next meeting, and which is going to be next week. And so these student pastors are about to get together again, because we haven't just united these students, like we've united ourselves as student pastors. And so we're not just meeting together to plan the next one, we're meeting together and we're praying over each other. Like we've been praying significantly for a buddy of ours. We have one his church is going through some things. The other, his wife is battling cancer. Another one is dealing with like a financial situation. And so like when we get together, we're planning things, but we're also just trying to be brothers that sharpen one another, which is really cool. It's really unique.
That's awesome. Speaking as one who had the privilege of leading a D-Now and being the main speaker one year, it's and the way I always try to describe it, I told you to get emotional because we talk about these kind of things. It's so encouraging when you look out from the stage and you see 400 here, 1,000 when they're all together. You see teenagers not just putting on a show, not just coming to a concert, worshiping, praying. I think one of the stark moments for me was when we called for a time of prayer. And you saw kids come together who don't hang out in the same groups. And they'd walk over and put their hand on someone and pray with them. They'd walk over and kneel down with them and just cry with them sometimes. There's a lot of heaviness going on in these kids. There it goes.
Yeah.
But it's encouraging because they're here and they're coming for that. They're hungry for that. I'm leading to a question. I just got a little sidetracked.
Yeah.
My question is, give us, speaking from the old guy club, give us your perspective on what's encouraging about seeing these young people come together, seeking the Lord, especially with all that they're dealing with in our culture today that we don't really even know about as adults and parents and grandparents that we may not fully understand. What's encouraging to you when you see that happen?
Well, I mean, more than any time, I feel like in our lives, we have a more divided possible country. We continue to be divided in our time and our energy over things that are competing for our time and our energy. Like, we obviously have sports, we have different clubs. Coming back from off of COVID, which I don't know if we're still allowed to mention COVID and like use it as as a point of turning, but like the world changed obviously, and the way in which we interact with one another. So when we came back from COVID, it seemed like everyone was like, we're all in on church, and then everything else started to get back rolling again, and they're like, okay, we're still in on God, but we're also in on all of these other things, and so to see students come together to sacrifice things for the weekend. It's showing their priorities, that their priority is Christ. And we're seeing like this really cool movement with social media where when social media, let's just go back 10 years ago, social media was all about really you would engage by watching. That was the way you engage with social media. There was tons of social media accounts that weren't posting their own stuff and they were just watching the main like content creators, the main influencers. But now we have a culture of students that they only engage if they can engage actively and if they can actively participate. And so they're wanting their own content to be out there. They're wanting to say their own things. They're wanting to have their own voice. And it's just been cool, like how our country, some of the best of things, some of the worst of things have developed students today that are more independent, not relying upon their parents' faith, not relying on what like social media says, but like they want to be an active influencer, whether it's in their friend group, and if they don't have social media, or if they do have social media and they have this platform, whatever it is, they want to be an active engager, an active leader when it comes to faith and when it comes to truth. And so like we have this challenge with our high schoolers. It's called the Proud Christian Challenge. It's been given to us by Sunday Cool, which is a phenomenal company. But basically we've given these students these t-shirts that say Proud Christian on it. And we're like, hey, if you want to be a part of this challenge, put these on Wednesday. Go to school, go to practice, go to your club, whatever it is, wear these shirts and share the gospel. And immediately, like dozens of students are like, sign me up. I want to be that. And I don't think that, going back a decade, we would have really had that. And so these students are coming together. They're choosing not to be divided by church, and they're choosing to be unified under Christ, but also they're like, let me learn so that I can go and share and tell. And so when I'm seeing these students, like yesterday, one of my biggest calls was like, we need to like slay the things in our life that we've put as idols on the throne, remove those things so that we can put God there. And students like constantly are they're figuring out the things that are distracting them from truly sharing the gospel, and then they're going and getting rid of those things in their life and sharing the gospel. Wow. And so we have students for the first time ever being like, I don't need social media anymore. It's not helpful for my heart that's trying to chase after God. And I'm like, I've never heard a student say this before. Like, this is incredible. Yeah. And so, and I think that comes with the science and research that's coming out. But I mean, to see students who at this age, frequently your entire identity is wrapped up in what other people think about you. And it feels like for the first time we're seeing in a generation that's like, no, my identity is in Christ. My identity is in what I decide. Not what you think about me, but what I want you to think about me. And I'm hopeful for those that are choosing, I want you to think Jesus when you see me. Yeah. And it's a really cool time. It's a really cool time in student ministry. And so it gives me hope, knowing that these students are today's church, but also they're the future, leaders of the church. And these guys are going to be rolling into staffing positions and volunteer positions. Like I had so many leaders this weekend that graduated back in May, the class of 2025, and they are already serving right now. And it's just like, this is really cool. You, for 7 years, were poured into by leaders, and now on your year 8 of student ministry, you're a leader pouring back in. And we've seen like some of these leaders, like they had a leader that poured into them for 7 years, and they rotate back in with that leader that was pouring into them now as a co-leader. And it's like, hey, let me let you know that like she's been with me for 7 years, and I'm where I'm at today, and one of the reasons why is because of her, and now I want to do that with y'all. Oh man,
awesome.
There's just nothing better.
Yeah.
And so it's just a really sweet time of ministry.
That's incredible. Yeah. Speaking of those volunteers, I know from watching and from seeing the amount of work and effort your staff, all the leadership, your volunteers, all the other churches, so many hours went into this weekend for these kids to do that. If people want to get involved or are looking for a way to serve, what's the best way to do that, to come alongside of you guys in student ministry? Yeah,
no, this is actually really good timing. If you are interested in serving, we have an application process that is kind of rigorous, because we don't want just anybody.
Yeah.
But if you can truly say that you're at a spot where your cup is being filled by God, by your own walk with Him, and you feel like God's pouring your cup so much that it's overflowing, and you want some of that overflow to be on students, then we receive that. And so, we'll have an application process, and we're actually, this is a good time to start that, because we'll launch in the fall, like in August. Promotion Sunday is our big day, but we'll start training you before that. We'll have a couple different meetings with you, do background checks and all that stuff. But if you were just to find our emails on the website, it's going to be dmcswain or jwidelick@hillcrestchurch.com. Reach out to us. We can go ahead and get you an application and start that process and bring you in, because we have between 3 and probably 6 leaders that are pouring into every single grade and gender. And so that a 7th grade boy has 6 men that are pouring into him, which is just really phenomenal to see the body of Christ, because each of us look different. Each of us have different roles, but all of them pouring in. And frequently what we'll see is that 7th grade guy will find one of those 6, and he's like, I connect with him.
Yeah.
I want to do life with him as he follows Christ. And that's really cool. So we welcome that. Please, always more volunteers. We'd love to have you.
And we need them. We need them to do it. You mentioned the email, Jay Widelick. That's not how it looks when you look at your last name. So do you want to speak just a moment of how Widelick came from what it's spelled like?
I mean, it's German. I think I actually have
Was it tough growing up with his name?
Well, yeah. My dad had a lawn care business. He was a firefighter, but he also had this lawn care business, and we had this big sign. It's like Widelick's Lawn Care. And back in the day, we had an answering machine. We'd all record our voices on it, and people would leave us messages, and they'd be like, "I'm calling to get my yard cut from the Weed Lickers," and it was like, hold on, Weed Licker partners really well with lawn care. So like, should we just change? Should we decide we're no longer Widelicks, we're the Weedlicks? And then I just get the weirdest things.
I can't imagine.
Yeah. And so, no chance. I mean, Weidlich, if you somehow wrote that down watching this or whatever, just go to the website and click on my picture.
And it's pronounced Widelick.
Widelick.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I love describing that to teenagers.
I'm sure
it makes us all
do.
uncomfortable.
That's why you're in student ministry.
That's right.
Very good.
Praise the Lord.
Along those lines, anything that sticks out, or any memorable moments or embarrassing or fun stories you can share respectfully of your time in student ministry? Because I know you've got a bunch, but what do you want to choose to share with our viewing public that I don't already know about?
Okay. 1 minute.
You can take 2. We'll be right.
No, one of my favorite stories of all time, there was these senior boys, and we were at a student life camp, and they found this hill.
I got 8 stories that just popped into my head, and I don't know which way you're going with it. I'm a little nervous. I'm a little sweaty, depending on what you're going to say. Sorry, go ahead.
So they find this hill, and we were at this camp that had these plastic mattresses, and we all had to bring our own bedding. and they had these plastic mattresses that were really slick, and they found out that if they ran at any sort of speed and jumped onto these mattresses while hitting the hill, they could surf them for a pretty significant distance. Well, these senior guys started it, and next thing we know, the whole student ministry, I think it was Dustin and I were leading this camp. We get up to like our dorm room, and this is silent. It's like 11 o'clock at night. and it shouldn't be this quiet. Like everyone should be awake. And so like we look in a couple of rooms, there's nobody there. We're like, where is everyone? And then we see one student and they're like, they're all mattress surfing over at the Hill. And there's like a bunch of other churches too. And so we find out there's like a couple hundred students just mattress surfing these are not our mattresses. It's 100% guaranteed there's going to be damage on these mattresses from sliding them down God's earth, and they're not created for this. And so we sent out a text message through our text message group, and we're like, if you're not back in your rooms in 30 seconds, we're calling your parents. And then it's one of my favorite moments ever. We're like on the 3rd floor of this building. We look out of this window, and like ants just being scattered from an anthill, we see these students with mattresses above their heads, and they're full sprinting, and these mattresses are just bouncing, and they're running back just to our building. Well, Dustin and I, we're laughing so hard. We have to be stern when it's time to be stern, but right now, this is hilarious. And so we go back to our room for a minute, and we're like trying to compose ourselves. We're like, be mean. We need to be mean to these students. They've lost their minds. They're damaging this beautiful campus's property. Like, we got to go in here. And so we go to the senior boys' room first, and there's one guy. He's laying there on the bed. Can I name drop?
No
name drop. All right.
No,
so well, he's a staffer's son, and he's laying there on the bed, and he's shirtless, completely sweaty, and he's laying on the side of his bed. He's got his head propped up with his arm, and he's. And we said, "Can I call him Jim for this?"
Sure.
It was not Trevor. I want to be very
clear. It was not my son. It's not my son.
And so we're like, Jim, what's going on? He's like, nothing. Just hanging out. I was like, where's everyone else at? He's like, I don't know. And we're like, listen, Jim. Only because you're being such a bro to all of your other friends right now. It's the only reason why we're not chewing you out. But we know where you were, and we know what you've done. And so the boys came back, and we just let them have it. And especially as the seniors, like, you know better. And we made them clean, like with soap and water and rags, and clean all the mattresses. And luckily none of them were damaged. But it's one of my favorite moments ever. Yeah. And we still we say he's the hero of y'all's group, because he was sweaty, shirtless, breathing hard. He did not reveal the truth of what was going on, and he stood his ground for y'all, and only because of that did we actually go a little bit easy on them. You're like, you know what? We actually respect what he did as a bro. But any students that are watching this podcast, if you are that person, do not do that, because
you obey all the rules all the time, like you did coming up.
Every rule,
every time. I appreciate you sitting down with us. This is fun. I was teasing you a little bit before we got into this about how heavy theologically we were going to go and stuff like that. But I just want you to know, and you know this, we talk often, I'm so proud of you about who you are, about the young man that you are, the husband, the father you are now, watching you come up and watching those years. Again, when you have your son's friends and their group, you kind of just start to make connections. And I do, consider you as along the friends of my son. And so it's great to see the path that you've chosen, that God has led you on. It's great to see the way that you lead. You lead humbly. I think that's an important key for you. But you are still willing to enjoy the process. You do enjoy student leadership. I can tell that. And so I just think it's amazing to see what you've done, the way you've done it. I'm grateful for you and for your leadership here. I hope you do continue for many years. But great job. Great job in what you're doing. I'm proud of what you're doing. Keep it going.
Thank you. Yeah. I love it. I love being here, and hope to never leave.
Cool. Jeremy Weidlich, everyone. Thank you so much again for joining us here on The Locker Room. Again, a little bit different this week, but hopefully you're able to see a little bit behind the scenes what we have going on at Hillcrest and how blessed we are to have the church that we have, the way that God has brought leaders like this together to do our best for your kids, your grandkids, you, whoever you have that you can invite to Hillcrest, be a part of what we're doing here. So we're grateful for you. We'll be back into our Revelation series on Sunday. Hope to see you there. If not then, we'll see you next time on The Locker Room. God bless you.